Have you ever been so angry that you didn't recognize yourself? Not in hindsight, but right there, in the moment. You knew you were losing it, but it was like watching a version of yourself erupt from insider, impulsive, out of control. Maybe it started with a single sentence, a glance, a tone in someone's voice. Suddenly, your words were sharp, your hands clenched, your mind flooded with the kind of thoughts you regret before they even finish forming. And yet sometimes there's no outburst, no yelling, no broken glass, no slammed doors. You don't explode, but inside, you stew, you nod, smile, walk away. Yet your mind replays the scene 1,000 times. The offhand comment, the passive-aggressive tone, the tiny insult wrapped in politeness. You're not angry, but you are deeply, persistently bothered. And that's a different kind of prison. Here's the hard truth. Most of us are emotionally manipulated every day without even realizing it. We let people walk into our minds with muddy boots and call it normal. One careless word from a stranger, and our whole mood collapses. A delayed text, a raised eyebrow, a disagreement, and suddenly we're no longer ourselves. We've surrendered control. But what if that ends today? In this video, how to never get angry or bothered by anyone, we're not just talking about managing emotions, we're talking about reclaiming emotional sovereignty. We'll break down the difference between the explosive force of anger and the quiet erosion of being bothered, and we'll guide you through 7 Stoic principles that will change the way you respond to everything and everyone. This isn't emotional suppression, this is transformation, and it begins now. 1. Anger is instinct. Restraint is strength. There is a moment sudden, electric, uncontrollable when something inside you snaps. A sharp word, a raised voice, an unexpected insult. You don't plan it, it just happens. Your jaw tightens, your heart rate spikes, your voice rises before your reason can catch up. That right there is anger. Pure, unfiltered, reactive. It's raw, it's primal, and it's dangerous not just to the person standing in front of you, but to yourself. Because anger, in its instinctive form, is the moment you surrender the throne of your own mind to someone else. And yet, anger is also deeply human. Everyone feels it, even the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote during one of Rome's darkest, bloodiest periods. He commanded armies, led nations, and buried his own children. If anyone had the right to be angry, it was him. But instead he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." To him, anger wasn't power. Control was. The ability to choose your response, rather than be ruled by impulse, was what separated the wise from the weak. Think about that. You don't have to suppress anger. That's not what Stoicism teaches. You simply don't have to obey it. You don't have to react. Between stimulus and response, there is a sacred space, a pause, a breath, a beat of stillness where your future is decided. That's where Stoicism lives, not in numbness, but in that small, powerful moment of sovereignty. The Stoics practiced what can only be described as emotional judo. They trained their minds the way warriors train their bodies. They knew that if you couldn't control your own temper, you'd always be someone else's puppet. Epictetus, a former slave-turned-philosopher, taught, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. You agreed to the anger. You allowed it in. But what if you didn't? What if the next time someone insulted you, you said nothing? What if you just paused 10 seconds, maybe 5? What if you inhaled once, exhaled twice, and let silence do the work? That is not weakness. That is a higher form of strength." Let's be clear, this is not about suppressing emotion. This is about expanding the space between emotion and action. Anger can still rise, but you don't have to ride the wave. You can watch it crest and crash without drowning in it. That's the art. That's the power. The modern world doesn't make this easy. Everything is faster, louder, more personal. We're bombarded with opinions, challenged by strangers, judged by algorithms. Outrage is profitable. Reaction is rewarded. But if you want peace, if you want freedom, you must learn to pause. Because the longer the pause, the greater the power. This isn't theory. Let's talk about Mike Tyson. In his early years, he was the epitome of raw fury, a force of nature in the boxing ring, but also outside of it volatile, unpredictable, and often destructive. He was a champion, but also a prisoner of his own emotions. Fame didn't free him. Anger enslaved him. But then came the transformation. Years later, Tyson became known not just as a fighter, but as a philosopher in his own right. He turned to introspection, meditation, discipline. He began to speak publicly about the inner battles, the ones we don't see. The strongest people, he once said, aren't those who show strength in front of us, but those who win battles we never see. That evolution from uncontrollable rage to composed reflection isn't just inspiring, it's stoic. Tyson didn't stop feeling anger. He simply stopped letting it control him. He found that sacred pause. He started choosing who he wanted to be instead of becoming a slave to who he had been. Now ask yourself this. When was the last time anger hijacked you? When did a sharp comment ruin your entire day? When did someone else's behavior dictate your emotional weather? And what if, in that moment, you had paused? Just 10 seconds. Just one breath of space between the trigger and the reaction. Here's your practice. Take a moment and write down 3 times in your life when you lost your temper. 3 moments when anger led and regret followed. Then, for each one, imagine what you might have done with a 10-second pause. What would you have said or not said? What would have changed? You're not trying to rewrite the past. You're learning to reclaim the future. The next time anger rises, and it will remember this, you are not your rage. You are not your reaction. You are the one who chooses. And in that choice, you hold the keys to your freedom. Restraint isn't weakness, it's mastery. And in a world that constantly pulls you to react, the quiet act of choosing not to is the loudest strength of all. 2. Bothered, the silent invasion that drains your inner peace. Not all emotional turmoil comes with raised voices or broken objects. Some of it arrives quietly. It lingers in your chest, whispers in the back of your mind, and refuses to let go. That's what being bothered feels like. It's not an explosion, it's erosion, the kind of subtle mental invasion that turns small discomforts into hours of invisible stress. And most of the time, you don't even realize it's happening. You replay that offhand comment someone made at lunch. You rethink the look your partner gave you in silence. You stew in uncertainty over a message that didn't get a reply. You smile in public, nod in meetings, carry on with your day, but inside, you're unsettled. That's not peace. That's a quiet prison. The Stoics had a wordless understanding of this. Marcus Aurelius, writing in Meditations, not just as a philosopher but as an emperor burdened with the weight of empire, offered a gentle but powerful insight. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. In other words, the problem is not what was said or done, it's what you decided it meant. To be bothered is to unconsciously allow something outside of you to claim space within you. It's an act of inner surrender, disguised as calm. Because the truth is, being bothered isn't the same as being silent. Silence can be powerful, but being bothered is when your lips say nothing and your mind screams everything. Stoicism doesn't demand apathy, it invites awareness. When you feel bothered, you're being invited to look inward, not outward. It's an opportunity to ask, what am I really reacting to here? What story have I told myself about this moment? Often, the root of being bothered isn't the event, it's our interpretation, laced with fear, pride, or unresolved pain. The modern world gives us more opportunities to be bothered than ever before. Social media comments, subtle workplace microaggressions, ghosted texts, slow responses, passive-aggressive compliments, they all come wrapped in ambiguity, and ambiguity is fertile ground for mental noise. But the Stoic path is to clarify that ambiguity by recentering your attention on what you can actually control, your thoughts. When you feel that tension risen not as anger, but as irritation, agitation, tightness in the chest pores, breathe, observe. This is your mind telling you, we've handed our peace over to someone or something else. And once you recognize that, you can gently take it back. There is a difference between ignoring something and being free from it. The first is passive avoidance. The second is active sovereignty. To be free from being bothered is not to dismiss or deny life's challenges, but to place them in their proper size and shape. Here's a practical Stoic exercise that can begin restoring your emotional clarity. Keep a bothered journal for the next 3 days. Every time you feel even slightly unsettled, write it down. Not just what happened, but what you felt, what you thought, and what story you told yourself about it. Did someone speak over you in a meeting? Did a friend take too long to text back? Did someone seem distant or uninterested? Track these moments, however small, then return to them with fresh eyes. Ask yourself, was this really about them, or was it about how I interpreted the moment? You'll begin to notice patterns. You'll see that many of your emotional disturbances were built not from reality, but from assumptions. You'll learn, like the Stoics, to separate what's said from what you make it mean. Over time, this practice sharpens a muscle of emotional resilience. The world still throws noise at you, but you stop internalizing every whisper. You no longer allow every raised eyebrow or forgotten thank you to become a seed of self-doubt. You become lighter, not because life gets easier, but because you carry it differently. This chapter is not about denying discomfort. It's about refusing to let discomfort define you. It's about becoming aware of how often you hand over your peace without a fight. And it's about taking it back not with aggression, but with clarity. You may not always control what happens outside, but with practice, you can shape how it echoes within. That is the Stoic path. And it begins with noticing the moments when you feel bothered and choosing to reclaim your mind before those moments take root. Remember, disturbance lives in meaning, not in matter. And meaning is yours to make or unmake. Write, reflect, reclaim, and in the stillness that follows, listen carefully. That quiet, that's your power returning. 3. Stop judging. Free yourself from the emotional weight that isn't yours. There's a subtle trap we fall into every single day, and it has nothing to do with what others do, but everything to do with how we interpret it. We judge, constantly, silently, instinctively. We judge the way someone talks, the way they walk, how they respond to a message, or how they look at us across the room. We tell ourselves stories. He's rude, she's cold, they don't respect me. Without realizing it, we're assigning meaning to every interaction, and that meaning often reflects more about us than the people we're judging. Marcus Aurelius, whose wisdom guided not just an empire, but generations of minds seeking peace, reminds us with simple clarity in meditations. You always own the option of having no opinion. What a radical notion. You don't have to form an opinion about everything. You don't have to label every moment or person. You don't even have to react. To judge is to impose your internal world on someone else's behavior. And when you do that, you bind your emotions to your expectations. Suddenly, your peace becomes conditional dependent on others acting in accordance with the standards you've secretly set for them. But here's the thing, you don't see the whole picture. You never do. Maybe the person who snapped at you just lost someone they loved. Maybe the barista who seemed cold is working a double shift. Maybe that text wasn't ignored out of malice, but exhaustion. Every single person you meet is fighting a battle you cannot see. And judging them is not just unfair, it's emotionally expensive. Stoicism offers an alternative. Suspend your opinion. Just observe. That doesn't mean you condone harmful behavior or abandon discernment. It means you step back and choose clarity over assumption. The Stoics didn't strive for numbness, they aimed for precision. They sought to see things as they are, not as distorted by their own desires or insecurities. When you stop judging, you free your mind from the burden of assigning blame or seeking validation. You stop rehearsing arguments in your head. You stop wasting energy trying to read people, and instead you return to what you can actually control: your thoughts, your intentions, your presence. This isn't just philosophy, it's a strategy for sanity. In today's hyper-connected, hyper-reactive world, judgment happens at the speed of scrolling. We see a headline and decide who's right. We see a post and decide who's fake. We hear a tone and decide who's disrespectful. But each judgment we make attaches a hook to our peace, and over time we drag around those hooks like chains. To unhook yourself, try this. For the next 24 hours, commit to not forming any internal judgment about others. That doesn't mean you won't notice things. You will. But instead of labeling, just acknowledge. Instead of, he's annoying, try, he's speaking quickly. Instead of, she's arrogant, try, she's confident. Replace conclusions with observations. Keep a small notepad or use your phone's notes. At the end of the day, reflect. How many moments did you simply let pass without mental commentary? How did that affect your emotional state? Were you more relaxed, more available, more present? You'll find that by stepping back from the habit of judging, you gain mental space. Conversations become easier. Tensions dissolve faster, misunderstandings shrink, and most importantly, your energy is no longer consumed by things you can't verify or change. This is the Stoic superpower: not to retreat from the world, but to engage with it from a place of clarity, not contamination. Judgment fogs the lens through which you see the world. Non-judgment cleans it. There's a final humbling truth to remember. You too have been misunderstood. You've had bad days. You've spoken too quickly. You've hurt people unknowingly. And if you want the grace to be seen as more than your worst moment, you must offer that same grace to others. Let go of the need to be right about everyone else. Let go of the story your ego wants to tell, and in doing so, you let go of the weight you never needed to carry in the first place. As you continue this journey through Stoicism, remember that judgment is not power, presence is. And when you stop judging others, you finally begin to see them and yourself more clearly. So, for the next 24 hours, practice the art of non-judgment. Observe, breathe, let things pass. See what remains when the noise of opinion falls away. Often, what remains is peace. 4. No one can make you angry unless you give them power. There's a dangerous illusion most of us live under: the belief that other people are responsible for how we feel. Someone cuts us off in traffic, and we say, "They made me angry." A colleague takes credit for our work, and we tell ourselves, "She ruined my day." We speak of emotions as if they're accidents, as if we're victims of external forces that pull and push us without our consent. But this idea is a lie, and the longer we believe it, the longer we remain emotionally enslaved. Stoicism offers a hard but liberating truth. No one can make you feel anything without your permission. The moment you accept this, you begin to reclaim the most sacred form of freedom, inner sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire, yet battled his own emotions with fierce discipline, wrote, "He who angers you conquers you." Those 7 words contain a lifetime of wisdom. If someone can provoke you at will, they own a part of your mind. And that is not power. That is weakness disguised as righteousness. Nowhere is this lesson more vividly illustrated than in the moment Will Smith stepped onto the stage at the 2022 Oscars and slapped comedian Chris Rock. The world watched in disbelief. It was a split-second decision, a raw response to a joke directed at his wife. Some saw honor, others saw ego, but almost everyone saw emotion, unfiltered and unchecked, detonated in front of millions. For a man known for charisma and composure, it was a jarring fracture. The fallout was swift. Public backlash, media chaos, career consequences. But what lingered beyond the headlines was something deeper, the undeniable truth that in that one moment, Smith handed over his emotional control. He let someone else determine who he would become, if only for a few seconds. Those seconds changed everything. This isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Every one of us has our own Oscar moment, maybe not on a global stage, but in kitchens, boardrooms, inboxes, and text threads. Someone says something, and without thinking, we react. We lash out, we defend, and only later do we ask, was it worth it? More often than not, the answer is no. But why do we react so quickly? Why does anger feel automatic? It's because biologically, we are wired to perceive threats. Our amygdala, emotional center of the brain, lights up when we feel disrespected or attacked. In ancient times, this helped us survive. Today, it often leads us to overreact to things that are inconvenient, not dangerous. And modern society doesn't help. We're constantly pushed to be reactive, to express outrage, to clap back instantly. But strength isn't in speed, it's in the stillness that comes before the response. Now imagine if Will Smith had responded differently. Imagine if, instead of standing up and walking toward the stage, he had paused. 10 seconds, a single breath, a moment of reflection. Maybe he would have realized the joke wasn't worthy of response. Maybe he would have chosen to respond with words instead of violence. Or maybe he would have chosen silence. That's the beauty of choice. It allows you to stay in control, even when everything else is spiraling. And what does that pause actually buy you? Clarity. The difference between an instinct and an intention, between an emotional hijacking and conscious leadership. Anger closes the gap between trigger and reaction. Stoicism reopens it. This is the Stoic ideal. Responding, not reacting. Anger is a reaction. Restraint is a response. And restraint is not weakness. It's power in its most disciplined form. It is you refusing to be conquered. When someone insults you, the words are external. But the story you build around them, that's internal. That's where suffering begins. You interpret the insult as a threat. You take it personally. You let it define your self-worth. But none of this is required. It's all optional. Stoicism teaches that between external events and internal emotions lies a sacred space called agency, and your entire peace depends on how you use it. And what does agency look like in real time? It looks like someone laughing at you and you not flinching. It looks like a passive-aggressive comment and you staying calm. It looks like choosing silence over sarcasm, understanding over offense. And that agency doesn't just protect your peace, it expands your presence. People feel it, they trust it. You become immovable. In that sense, Will Smith's story is not one of failure, it's a mirror. It forces us to confront how often we give our power away, how quickly we exchange dignity for dominance, how easily we confuse impulse with identity. It reminds us that emotional mastery is not measured in the absence of provocation, but in how we behave when it arrives. This chapter does not end with a practice or a journaling prompt, because today's lesson is lived, not written. You don't need a worksheet, you need a pause. The next time you feel your blood rise, your fists clench, your mouth rush to speak, pause. Remember this: no one can make you angry unless you hand them the keys to your peace. That's your line in the sand. That's the difference between reaction and reflection, between chaos and clarity. Will Smith paid a public price for a private lesson. Let it not be wasted. Let it serve as a reminder that every moment is a choice, and every choice is a chance to stay free. And maybe the most powerful question you can carry forward from this moment isn't, "What will I do when provoked?" but rather, "Who am I when I'm unprovoked?" Because that's the version of you no one can touch. Because in the end, real strength is not how loud you strike. It's how quietly you stand, unwavering, in the face of fire. That's Stoicism in motion. That's power reclaimed. 5. Let go of the illusion of control. Start with what truly belongs to you. Control. We chase it, we crave it. We structure our entire lives around trying to gain more of it over outcomes, over people, over our future. And yet, the more we reach for control where it doesn't belong, the more anxious, frustrated, and reactive we become. That's the paradox of emotional suffering. It often comes not from what happens, but from our refusal to accept that we never had control to begin with. Marcus Aurelius captured this truth with stark simplicity. Some things are up to us, and some are not. This wasn't resignation, it was strategy. The Stoics weren't passive, they were laser-focused on what they could actually influence: their own mind, choices, values, and responses. Everything else, weather, traffic, gossip, other people's opinions, none of it belonged to them. None of it was theirs to hold. This radical clarity is what allowed the Stoics to walk through chaos with calm. It's what allowed them to lose everything, yet still keep their dignity. Because when you stop wasting energy trying to control the uncontrollable, you gain power over the only thing that ever mattered: yourself. Modern philosopher and entrepreneur Naval Ravikant put it this way: peace is the result of training your mind to process life as it is, rather than as you think it should be. It's the same Stoic truth, reborn in the language of now. Expectation is a form of control, and when your peace depends on things going according to plan, you've already placed your happiness in someone else's hands. Naval shares that he used to get frustrated when others didn't understand him. Whether in business conversations or personal relationships, he would walk away feeling unseen or misinterpreted. And the more he tried to control how people perceived him, the less peace he had, until he let go. He stopped trying to manage their reactions. He stopped expecting them to see everything the way he did. And in that moment, the tension lifted, not because people changed, but because he did. This is the shift we all need. From chasing control to cultivating clarity, from forcing outcomes to aligning with reality. It begins with a question: what actually belongs to me? Try this exercise. Draw 2 circles. In the first, write down everything you truly control: your thoughts, your actions, your boundaries, your interpretations. In the second, write everything you don't: the economy, your partner's mood, your boss's behavior, the past, the future. Sit with it. Let the distinction settle. Then ask, how much of your daily stress comes from trying to control what's in the second circle? How often do you suffer because you expect someone else to change, or wish life would move differently, or hold on to outcomes as if they owe you certainty? Letting go isn't defeat, it's liberation. It doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. And ironically, that's when things often shift, because your energy is no longer needy, reactive, or manipulative. It becomes grounded, calm, and intentional. You lead instead of chase. You respond instead of demand. To live this way requires a mental habit, the daily practice of returning to your lane. When something goes wrong, ask, is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, accept. Simple? Yes. Easy? Not always. But over time, it becomes a muscle, a reflex, and then a way of life. Look at your own week. Where did you try to control what you shouldn't? Maybe you worried excessively about someone's opinion. Maybe you obsessed over a plan not unfolding as expected. Maybe you held on to resentment, thinking it gave you leverage. Now consider this. What would change if you had released that grip earlier? How much energy would you have saved? How much peace would you have preserved? We spend so much of life bracing against the wind, when the wiser move is to adjust the sails. And the more you align with what's actually yours to hold, the lighter your life becomes. You don't stop showing up. You simply stop showing up with desperation. This isn't spiritual bypassing. It's strategic serenity. It's a commitment to living with precision, focusing only where your effort makes a difference, and letting the rest unfold as it must. It's courage in its purest form, not control, but clarity. And the more you practice this, the more you'll notice a new kind of strength forming inside you. A strength that doesn't need to grip, prove, or predict. A strength rooted in self-trust, not external dominance. So take a breath. Look at your life. Ask honestly, where am I clinging to something I was never meant to carry? Then let it go, not in anger, not in fear, but in freedom. Because when you let go of the illusion of control, you begin to live with true power, and the world will feel light even if it doesn't understand it. Just like Naval did, just like the Stoics always knew, just like you can now, starting here. 6. The world isn't perfect, and no one owes you kindness. Let's be honest, sometimes we expect too much. Not from life in general, but from people. We expect kindness from strangers, patience from colleagues, understanding from family, and empathy from friends. And when we don't get it, we feel wronged, offended, even angry. But this kind of anger is not rooted in injustice, it's rooted in misplaced expectations. And nowhere does Stoicism offer more peace than in the daily dismantling of these illusions. The Stoics didn't sugarcoat the world. They didn't pretend people would always be good, generous, or wise. Instead, they prepared themselves for the opposite. Every morning, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself in Meditations, Book 2, "Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." This wasn't pessimism, it was preparation, a way to start the day grounded in reality, not fantasy. Because when you expect the world to be smooth, every bump feels like betrayal. But when you expect bumps, they become part of the road. You're not shocked. You're not outraged. You're ready. This is the Stoic mindset. Don't demand that others be perfect. Prepare to meet them as they are flawed, distracted, human. And then, when kindness shows up, it feels like a gift, not a requirement. Imagine waking up tomorrow and telling yourself, someone might be rude to me today, someone might ignore my needs, someone might be selfish or unfair. Now imagine those things happen and you're not shaken, you're not triggered, you're not caught off guard. You saw it coming, not because you're cynical, but because you're wise. That's what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, premeditation of adversity. This simple technique changes everything. By rehearsing potential difficulties ahead of time, you soften their impact. You become less reactive and more resilient. Life loses its sting not because it stops hurting, but because you stop acting surprised. Too often, we tie our peace to other people's behavior. We think, if they respect me, I'll feel good. If they're thoughtful, I'll feel safe. But that's fragile peace. It's peace on a leash, always tugged by someone else's decisions. The Stoics teach us to anchor peace internally, to detach our emotional state from someone else's maturity. It's liberating to realize that no one owes you kindness. Not your neighbor, not your boss, not your spouse. When you stop expecting people to be anything other than human, beautiful, messy, and inconsistent, you begin to relax. You begin to lead with grace instead of defensiveness. And this isn't about letting people walk all over you. Stoicism is not submission, it's strength. It means setting boundaries without bitterness. It means acknowledging pain without becoming it. It means recognizing someone's cruelty without needing to replicate it. The next time someone is rude to you, try this. Pause and ask yourself, did I truly expect this person to always act wisely, kindly, selflessly? Probably not. So why let their behavior break your spirit? Why let their imperfection disrupt your presence? This is where premeditatio malorum becomes more than a thought exercise. It becomes a shield, not to block life, but to meet it fully prepared. Before you step into your day, imagine 3 things that could go wrong. A meeting delayed, a passive-aggressive message, a family member snapping at you. Then visualize yourself responding with calm, with humor, or even with silence. At the end of the day, look back. Did those things happen? If they did, how did you react? And if they didn't, how did the exercise affect your mood, your patience, your energy? You'll begin to notice that fewer things bother you, not because life got easier, but because your expectations got wiser. You anticipated the storm, so you dressed for it. And maybe the storm never came, but you were ready either way. There's something beautifully human about accepting imperfection. It connects you to others. It reminds you that, like them, you too have failed, lashed out, shut down, or forgotten to be kind. You too are someone's disappointment. And if you deserve grace, so do they. But grace doesn't mean passivity. It means choosing how to respond from a place of intention, not injury. It means learning to stay centered even when others lose their balance. It means remembering that your emotional integrity is your sand. No one else's behavior can take it away unless you offer it up. As you move through the world, carry this quiet awareness. People are doing the best they can with the tools they have. Some are still learning, some are lost, some are hurting, and some, like you, are just trying to get through the day with a little less pain. When you understand this not just intellectually, but emotionally, you'll stop demanding perfection from imperfect people. You'll begin to respond with softness where you used to snap, and you'll experience the rare, powerful freedom that comes from meeting the world not with clenched fists, but with open hands. The world isn't perfect. People aren't either. But your peace doesn't have to depend on that. You can choose clarity over resentment, preparation over shock, understanding over expectation. And in doing so, you'll walk lighter, live freer, and most importantly, you'll no longer let someone else's behavior decide who you are. That's not just Stoicism, that's maturity in motion. 7. Forgiveness not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. Forgiveness is one of those words we often misunderstand. We think it means letting someone off the hook, that we're excusing their behavior, pretending it didn't hurt, or giving them permission to do it again. But real forgiveness, the kind the Stoics practiced, has nothing to do with them and everything to do with you. Forgiveness, in its highest form, is not a reward you give to another person. It is a release you give yourself. When someone wrongs you, your instinct may be to hold on to the pain, to keep the wound open as proof that what they did mattered. But the longer you hold on to it, the more it becomes your burden to carry, not theirs. Resentment doesn't punish the person who hurt you. It punishes you. It tethers your emotions to a moment in the past, making your peace conditional on someone else's remorse, which may never come. Marcus Aurelius, writing as both emperor and philosopher, said it best. The best revenge is to be unlike him who did the injury. In other words, don't become what hurt you. Don't let someone else's actions shape your character. Your highest power lies not in retaliating, but in choosing to remain who you are. Forgiveness, then, is not an act of surrender. It is a declaration of independence. It's standing at the gates of your own emotional prison and realizing the door has always been unlocked. All that's required is the courage to walk out. Think of someone you haven't forgiven. Maybe they betrayed your trust, dismissed your value, or hurt you with words that still echo. You might think that holding on gives you strength, that it protects you from being hurt again, but really, it keeps you tethered to the moment they took your power and prevents you from taking it back. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. It doesn't require contact. It doesn't even require the other person to know. It happens quietly, inside you. It's the shift from "they owe me" to "I owe myself peace." It's the decision to stop letting someone else's actions dictate your emotional weather. Forgiveness also doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without rage. It means learning without lingering. It means walking forward without dragging the weight of someone else's choices behind you. In this way, forgiveness is a form of Stoic resistance. It is refusing to be ruled by anyone who tried to harm you. It is choosing freedom over bitterness, clarity over chaos, growth over grievance. It is knowing that while the pain may not have been your fault, the healing will be your responsibility. One of the most powerful practices for forgiveness is writing. Not for publication, not for posting, just for you. Take 10 minutes, think of the person, feel the pain, but don't drown in it. Then write them a letter, not to reconcile, not to justify, not even to explain, just to release. Say what you need to say. Acknowledge what hurt. Then, say goodbye to the version of you still clinging to that moment. You don't have to send it. In fact, don't. This is not about them. This is about you creating space inside your soul again. Space that's been occupied too long by someone else's shadow. The world will not always give you closure. People may never apologize. Circumstances may never make sense. But you can choose to close the loop within yourself. Not with vengeance, not with silence, but with release. That is the highest act of power. That is the Stoic path. Because forgiveness is not a transaction, it is a transformation. It's not about saying, "What you did is okay." It's about saying, "I choose not to let what you did define who I become." So ask yourself, what pain have I been carrying that is no longer serving me? Who am I still giving emotional rent in the home of my peace? And what would it feel like to finally let them go, no because they deserve forgiveness, but because I deserve freedom? As you walk this path, remember that forgiveness doesn't make you weak, it makes you weightless. And in a world that constantly asks you to carry pain, choosing to put it down is the strongest thing you can do. Let your life be shaped by what you've healed from, not what you've held onto. Let your heart be light, not because the world is perfect, but because you've chosen not to let its imperfections hold you back. Because in the end, freedom isn't just the absence of pain, it's the presence of peace. And that peace begins the moment you decide, I will no longer be ruled by what wounded me. That moment is now. That choice is yours. You've just walked through 7 layers of emotional transformation, each one peeling back the habits and reflexes that once kept you chained to the anger and agitation of others. What you now hold isn't just knowledge, it's power. The quiet, unshakable power that comes from no longer being ruled by outside chaos, the kind that turns pain into perspective and conflict into clarity. From pausing before you react to understanding the silent weight of being bothered, from releasing judgment to reclaiming control over your own expectations, from recognizing what belongs to you to letting go of what doesn't, and ultimately to forgiving not because they deserve it, but because you do. This journey has been about sovereignty, emotional sovereignty, and that is the highest freedom. Stoicism never promised a world without suffering. It never offered immunity from difficulty. What it offered instead was mastery over the self. And mastery over the self changes everything. Because once you are no longer easily offended, provoked, or manipulated, no one can own your peace. And in that peace, you don't become distant. You become fully present, fully alive, fully in command. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who wrote in the margins of War and Solitude, left us a parting reminder. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That sentence isn't just an idea, it's a direction, a challenge, a practice. So now the challenge is yours. Don't let this video be something you just watched. Let it be something you lived. Re-watch the chapters you need. Sit with the questions that stirred something inside you. Try the practices. Write the letters. Draw the circles. Feel the discomfort. And above all, choose. Because every moment of frustration is an invitation to return to yourself. If this journey meant something to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs peace, with someone who's struggling to let go, with someone who still believes that control lives outside of them. Your voice could be the bridge that brings them home. And if this content spoke to your deeper self, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. What was the one moment in your life where you lost control, and now, looking back, what would you do differently? That reflection alone could change the course of someone else's journey. Remember, you cannot stop the waves, but you can learn to stand still within them.